Hi, friends. This is Mike Daniels. This is Co-Parenting Simplified, the Fayr way, and today's an exciting day. Is your ex, or your co-parent, we should say, getting you down during this COVID time? Are things heating up? Is one person trying to arbitrarily and unilaterally modify the time sharing, leveraging COVID as the impetus for doing so? Well, I'm super excited today because this is the first time I have three of our Fayr advisors here all together, and we're going to talk about it. All of these ladies have unbelievable experience in the family law section, but today we're highlighting Nadia Pazos, who is the founder of the Pazos group. It's a law group down here in Southeast Florida. I think she's got, what, 3 locations, Nadia? You're all over the place, and you're growing all the time. Yep. Once you, is it 3? Is it 3 locations?
Now everything's virtual. We're remote, so we're kind of locationless.
But that's true.
We were Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Boca.
Yeah. Well, we are super excited to get your perspective because maybe most people don't know this, but where we live down here, it truly is the hotbed for the entire country. Florida actually has the highest divorce rate of anywhere in the country. We represent 8% of the total market. And we're only edged out by California as number 1, and they only have 8.1%, regardless of having almost twice our population. So it just shows you just how heated it is. And so Nadia is down in the thick of it. She's seeing lots and lots of court motions, and she can really add a lot of valuable, like on the ground experience. I know, I know you just like really see it every day. So let's jump into it, and let's talk about what you're seeing.
So for the most part, so we have these temporary orders that were put out, and you guys, Gabrielle and Susan, let me know if it's the same where you're practicing. But the temporary orders put out pretty much mirrored the sentiment that was for co-parenting prior to COVID, which was either parent has the right to do with the child what they see fit, as long as, you know, they're not putting the child in any unreasonable amount of harm. Is that basically what you've seen in your
during their parenting time? Yeah,
like you can't, like one person can't just say, oh, they're not social distancing, like
right.
Parents are and people don't understand that.
Right, and that's where it's really difficult to explain to clients. And I understand that because the whole discussion just among people within this country, it's very difficult and it's very politicized and it's very polarizing. And, you know, there are some people that are kind of in the middle, but then there are some people that are, this is the flu, let me do what I want to do, don't tell me anything else. There are people on the complete other end of the spectrum that are, you know, this is life-threatening, don't, you know, let anyone leave their home without a mask, etc. You know, put rules in place, tell us what to do, keep us safe. So it's very difficult for us as lawyers to try to explain to our clients something that the government itself hasn't even really made clear and no one has been able to reach a consensus on, right? I mean, even the Center for Disease Control. So for us to step in and say, hey, you know, you got to follow this court order and pretty much let the other parent do what he or she thinks is right. It's difficult to explain to someone if each parent is on a polar opposite end of that.
What I try to tell my clients is to try, I mean, obviously there's a whole set of clients who cannot respect each other at all, but like there are people who will say, you know, like I'm a doctor, so my ex doesn't want me having any access to the kids during COVID. I'm like, well, no. And like I, you know, without obviously over disclosing, like sometimes these people are very accommodating and you want to say, you know, it's actually not good for your kids to have no contact with you, but maybe if you feel open to it, maybe you have most of your parenting time outdoors. I haven't yet approached the topic that once it's winter in New England, you know, maybe you can figure out another way to visit with your children because outside is going to get pretty darn cold. Yeah. So what about you, Susan? What are you seeing in Chicago?
You know, well, I don't really see it in Chicago because I don't practice here, but my clients in California and in Connecticut, you know, what we've really been seeing is early days, people were freaking out and people, you know, like everything in co-parenting, like Nadia just said, we would have one parent at one end of the spectrum and another parent on the other end of the spectrum. And that happens in co-parenting all the time, right? One thinks that, you need to have a very rigid schedule, and the other one's all about playtime and fun and being creative. And so we constantly, as professionals, are having that conversation with clients about having to respect, to use your word, Gabrielle, having to respect the other parent's parenting time, their desire to do what they feel is best for the children during their time. And then you have the opportunity to do what you think is best during your time. The problem here is it's very complicated, to what Nadia said, right? Because this could actually have health repercussions that either could be long lasting or fatal, depending on which camp you are in, with what this is, if it's a flu or a pandemic. But and so really I was seeing in the beginning days a lot of panic with parents and a lot of like flurry of, what are we going to do? What can I force my co-parent to do? What can I unilaterally do? To me, lately, it's kind of calmed down and everyone has settled into COVID time. But now with school starting back up, that's loading again. And people don't agree about what the kids should do about going back to school.
Well, also what's coming up is sometimes one of the parents has to work out of the house and the other doesn't. And then the one who's at home wants to know, are they going to be compensated for all that extra parenting time?
Yep.
Wow.
Financial issues are coming up. I was doing a show yesterday morning, and they were asking me a lot of questions about what I thought should happen with child support. I'm like, well, I don't know, world. I don't know if everyone really cares what I think should happen with child support, but it's certainly an interesting topic.
Yeah, homeschooling has become an issue too. There's usually one parent that will really firmly believe this is something that I'm in charge of. I've been in charge mainly of the child's schooling, regardless of, whether they go back and forth between houses. I'm the one on top of it. So how on earth is the other parent going to be able to facilitate this during their time? It kind of falls back on the, during each parent's time, they're responsible for doing it. But it's another issue that pops up that I've seen, people being concerned about the homeschooling, definitely. And it's interesting, Gabrielle, that you mentioned child support too, because that's another main issue that we've seen, not necessarily connected to homeschooling for me, but with people that are either have been furloughed or have had percentage deductions, whether temporarily or indefinitely in their income. We've seen that. And we've also seen people that are self-employed bringing in less income. And so it's, how do we deal with calculating child support? It was much easier in the past when someone had a steady income. Now it's, if I'm self-employed and the last 5 months my income has been cut in half, what are we going to go off of? Like, we're going to speculate that I'm going to be doing just as poorly the next 5 months, or are they going to try to fight that I should be earning what I was earning before COVID happened? And that's another issue.
Yeah, and I've actually found with the homeschooling and income, the parent who is taking charge of the homeschooling, or even for both parents, that takes a huge chunk of their time in their day. And if they're working from home, also trying to homeschool, I've had a lot of parents saying, this is affecting my income, because now so much of my time is being spent on monitoring the kids, making sure that they are studying, helping them with whatever they need to help with. And this is becoming a real issue for families as well. Or I just talked to a client. This is actually here in Chicago. I shouldn't have said I didn't have anyone here in Chicago, but and they want to group together with 4 other families in their neighborhood and hire a tutor together to handle all of the kids homeschooling. But one of the co-parents doesn't want to kick into the cost and is like, well, the school's got, so there's all these issues that are layering in that are still very COVID related. It's just new.
That's the pod. The pod. I'm doing the pod.
Yeah, are you?
My kids. That's like the big now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't handle the law practice and then getting, 2 kids online and homeschooling them and all that. Like we need some help.
Yeah, well, Gab's got 3, Michael's got
3,
2
right.
kids. Yeah.
And to your point also, Susan, like, there's 2 sides of it with the, you can't really work because you're homeschooling versus the other parent may be like ignoring the kids because they're like, I got to work. So the kid is on YouTube all day. That's what happens in my house. We're both working.
No,
right?
your son's doing TikTok videos and like making millions. So
my son blew up on TikTok yesterday.
Didn't Trump ban TikTok or something?
Yeah, I thought it was.
I thought so.
Not yet. We're TikTok famous in this house.
Mine are getting
how to use it.
Mine are getting addicted to Roblox. It's terrible.
Okay, that's a new one.
I don't know what that is.
Good.
How old are yours?
So 7, 5, and 2.
Oh, 7. Oh, mine were spaced sort of like that.
Yeah. So
but now they're 16, 14,
and I wanted to ask you guys, because we're talking about these temporary orders that kind of keep things in place where parents make the decisions. But there was this crazy case that came out of Florida. It was out of Miami, and I'm curious as to whether you heard about it because, believe it or not, I was telling my sister about it, who's a physician, just because I talked to her about interesting COVID-related events, and she had read about this case in one of her medical blogs that she reads.
Oh,
Because
when it came out, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You already know, right?
I don't.
Absolutely.
What is it?
I don't want to get in too much trouble because I practice in Miami, but this case was shocking to me. The judge took custody away from the mother who had shared custody because she was an ER doctor.
What?
So, yeah.
I did hear about that. Yeah.
It was shocking.
Yeah, and I haven't followed up to see if that was vacated and that's been changed because that kind of shocked people all over. That, I mean, there were doctors protesting this.
I bet it's been vacated.
I need to look into that to see. But
Susan, look that up.
I'm Googling if I'm looking sideways, people.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I'm curious to know how judges are responding to these concerns and inquiries. I guess it's case by case. Some judges may take it
mostly. That fact pattern that Nadia just put forward is an aberration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Well, and do keep in mind that was done on an emergency basis, right, Nadia? It was done because the other co-parent was saying that she presented an immediate harm to her children, so it was an emergency hearing, which even in most states, I don't think you would have gotten an emergency hearing for that. It never would have made it in front of a judge. That was partially what was shocking to me, that a judge even said, yes, I'll hear it.
That was shocking. And just the mom after was interviewed and she's just like, this is already very emotionally difficult for me to get through this time as a medical provider. And like the one solace I had was coming home to my daughter, my best friend, and seeing her. And now that's been taken away from me. Right. And how are first responders supposed to deal with it? That just kind of hurt my heart, that story.
Somebody just wrote in that they think it was appealed. I imagine it was appealed. Lisa,
I wonder if they've gotten a decision yet. Appellate courts are putting out decisions from home. So even the Supreme Court was online. So. But no, and that's the issue, right? For a lot of those hearings or a lot of the people where it wasn't an extreme, where someone is in the trenches of COVID, whether that should have been the ruling or not. There were, cases in the beginning or clients calling with, well, she's not a hand washer and she won't have the kids wash their hands enough. So I'm just not going to let the kids go back over there. Or, he always has his girlfriend over and I don't want an outside person in the house. So I'm not going to send the kids back. And there was a lot of unilateral action on the part of a parent who had the children who just kept them. And I think judges Florida had this order. I know New York did. Justice Sunshine came out with it, right, Gab? Like, this isn't going to come down well for you in the future if you unilaterally go changing court orders on your own.
If you Google New York Law Journal, Jeffrey Sunshine, it'll come right up. Right. And
let them have it. That was a great letter.
Yeah. And that's actually same thing is being followed in Massachusetts, as far as we can see. You just cannot unilaterally change things, even though you feel unsafe, which you can have an opinion about. But the fact is, there are a set of judges who are being told not to look fondly upon that.
Yeah, I mean, especially I know where we live, Nadia and I mean, I think there are administrative orders that have already come out saying that this is going to be the standard, and people are acting against it anyway, and they're having to go to mediations, and they're incurring a lot of costs, all the emotional and financial stress that's put upon people as a result of this. I mean, like, I guess, how do we present some sort of solution and some sort of process for people to take away and not just unilaterally make these decisions?
That's a tough one, honestly, because I mean, think of this. I have to speak in hypotheticals, really, like not specifically about clients, but think of a hypothetical where a mom has a newborn baby who had difficulty with pneumonia. Mm-hmm. So I think it's called I forget what the phrase is, where you could be at risk. Mm-hmm. Where if you're presented with a situation like that as an attorney, it's really difficult to say, well, just keep going along with the switching of houses because you don't want to unilaterally make any changes. It's difficult because we're attorneys, but we're people too. And I don't want to say don't follow a court order, but there are certain times where common sense, if you actually do really think that someone is at risk for this, it's hard to say just keep going until we get in front of a judge in 3 months.
There's just no good answer because, as we know as attorneys, and I don't know, Nadia, if you also mediate, but like I do like almost all mediation, and it is really true that there are 2 to 5 ways of looking at the same facts. And while you may hear your client say something where if you're listening right now and you're thinking, well, this is so black and white, it is not so black and white. 9.5 out of 10 times, it's just not. It may be that you get in front of the judge who happens to have your perspective, share your background, in some way connect with you, but put the same facts in front of another judge and it may not come down the way you think it's going to. And when you really wrap your head around that, I mean, that can go very far in all of our lives across many different topics, actually, right?
Yeah.
That's just me. I'm always right. I don't know about you guys.
Of course.
Well, it's about trying to find the even-handedness in all of this. And I just can't stand how emotional people get. They get charged and their view is the only view. And then they won't give, like, okay, if somebody's following all of the standards or regulations set forth by the CDC, local, state, and federal, but one person says, I don't believe that that's high enough of a standard that you're following. For example, you're going out wearing a mask and gloves and using hand sanitizer. That's not good enough for me. I want everybody under quarantine. You've got to be rational, because I think people are withholding children. They're weaponizing them. They're altering these things, and it's causing emotional problems. They're withholding kids for like a month, 2 months at a time. And I think it's sad.
It is sad. I think for most people, I like to think that it's based on a real concern, but there are definitely couples out there who would have they would have used anything to weaponize their case in general. So for that small percentage, COVID just adds to the weaponry, right? It's like one other tool that I can throw in there.
Absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Michael, in those cases, I just flat out say, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to put this in a motion, and I'm not going to go in front of a judge for this. Sorry. I'm not going to.
Yeah. I like to see more of that happen. The thing is those people just doing this stuff, and judges are, most judges are shooting this down. It's like, look, I'm not considering all this stuff emergency. And so then the one party's just holding on to the kid. And so without anybody coming down and slapping them on the wrist, they're just holding on to the kid. And in the end, the kids are being affected. So it's about what kind of advice can we give people to prevent that from happening?
Well, I think a lot of judges, depending where you're living, are not going to look favorably upon the party who is holding on to the kid. I mean, that's certainly the case if you look at Judge Sunshine's letter you listen to the judge, I mean, I don't know what's happening in Florida, but certainly here, I think also in New Jersey, it's just not going to be looked upon if you engage in what we call self-help, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and the
Yeah.
longer that situation goes on, the further along the continuum you might get to being considered an emergency. So when those behaviors come out in the children, sadly, that do show they are being negatively affected, usually stress will show in children in some fashion. I mean, depending on the age, there'll be bedwetting, there'll be sleeplessness, there'll be angry outbursts. There's, children don't tolerate stress for very long, very well. And so when you start to see those behaviors, it's possible that you might be able to now move into the realm of needing an emergency hearing, or at least getting some sort of order. So I have seen that be successful. So it's sad and it's unfortunate that it has to go through that continuum. But that is something, situations are not static, they change. And very much to what you said, Michael, if
Right.
children are showing stress, that's something to document and bring to the court's attention.
And
Yeah.
stress,
The more you have, the less a judge is going to be inclined to ignore it.
and stress can show up in a lot of different ways. It could show up in acting out. It can show up in, like, these days they don't get out of bed. The problem is it could be difficult to show stress if you don't have access to the child. So you may not have a good read on what's going on actually.
Yeah.
Maybe
We're gonna say Nadia.
Yeah, and Michael, to piggyback on what you were saying on just abuse of this, and let me know if you ladies have seen this also, but in the arena of supervised visitation, where one parent is attempting to get back to unsupervised visitation. So say we're talking reunification or supervised. That's a whole other arena now because that's gone virtual.
Yeah.
There are parents out there that really do want to get back on the path to being able to be with their kids without being supervised, that are now haven't seen their kids for months because it's all over Zoom. And I'm seeing the other parent who's with the child even making the Zoom meetings difficult or not happening, or just, my daughter just didn't feel like logging on. And that's just something else that's very heartbreaking and difficult, because now we can go and we can see things stretch on where parents aren't actually physically able to see their children for months on end with no end in sight, really.
Yeah.
There's no end in sight to any of this.
No.
Yeah.
I haven't had that particular case with the supervised visitation, but doesn't surprise me that people are taking advantage. And there's so many different ways to do it with, my Wi-Fi was down, or, the computer battery died, or they're going to come out, unfortunately, if people want to get around things, or if they want to subvert a court order, they're going to take advantage of the situation. All a parent who's in the situation of their parenting time being, impacted can do is, and one thing I tell every client, maybe Nadia and Gabrielle do as well, you have to document every single little thing. You have to journal it. You have to keep track of it all. Use your Fayr app, people. It has.
That's right. Use your Fayr app.
But see, I say that because this is co-parenting, simplified the Fayr way, but truly, you have to keep track of this, because when it happens, you think you're going to remember everything, and you are not, especially in these cases.
That's your 23
goes on, right? So very important. If this is happening to anyone who's listening, be sure that you document every single day, every single time what is happening in a neutral fashion, I will say. But
yeah. And not only not remembering, even if you remember, I mean, we've seen the documents that a client will put together where they handwrite in a calendar and these are the dates. It's not as convincing if you need to present that to a judge as something that's like well documented and printed out from Fayr.
Quite frankly, not to sound like a Fayr infomercial, but like now more than ever,
It's true.
might want to use
There's a reason we all like Fayr, people.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, now more than ever, I think it's really necessary. I was actually right before I was on this call, I was on a training with lawyers in New Mexico who were just talking about all the problems with another co-parenting app, and so we talked all about Fayr. So we'll talk about that after offline.
Oh, that's great. And by the way, everybody watching, if you Nadia has a discount code. It's Pazos Law. So if you just go to befayr.com and input that discount code, you get a 20% discount for life. So yeah, just throwing that out there.
Well, and that's really a key factor for people to be able to document. I think people forget that's an aspect of the app, that things are so easily documentable that you can keep those notes very quickly in there. So something important.
The private journal feature has become one of people's favorite. Like I oftentimes log in just to see how people are using it, what they're engaging with, and it's one of the top, and what's great about it is you're right. As life is happening, we forget to document things that get said, but you can upload PDFs, images, leave notes, anything in your private journal, and that is only seen by you, whereas the shared file vault is seen by both parties. So if you're going to put vital documents or whatever, you may want to put that in the file vault. People have done it backwards, and that's a little it causes a problem.
Because you'll get it time and date.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and the other nice part is, you can hit the little microphone and you can actually just sort of speak it.
You can just speak
instead of having to log in or type something out. I mean, so you really can get the facts and the details down, which is what I really like about it. Yeah. Daily log.
Well, daily log. Yeah. I mean, we'll be at the end of this thing, we'll be putting it on our latest ad, which I think is really nice, and it really shows all of its features. We're actually the only co-parenting app in Spanish right now, the full app in Spanish, not just like a website translated in Spanish. So that's kind of really helps our niche.
That's what I'm talking about, because they don't have that, and there's so many people who speak only Spanish.
Yeah, right.
In Miami, olvídalo.
Forget about it, right? Is that what you said?
Forget about it.
Now your New York's coming out.
When you leave, it says right on the highway, leaving Brooklyn, forget about it.
Yeah.
My son asked me if they were trying to show that the government really has a sense of humor. I said, yes.
No sleep till Brooklyn, Gabrielle.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Beastie Boys.
We listen to that in this house a lot.
Oh, I'm a fan.
Yeah. No, Gabrielle, go ahead, Gab.
I was going to say, if anybody is tuned in right now and anyone has general questions about how to handle parenting during COVID, you've got 3 divorce lawyers on the line right now. So we'd be happy.
Yeah, actually, I just saw that we actually have our highest viewership right now. So please, people, join the conversation and let us know what you have questions about.
Be a lot more interesting if you have questions for us.
Yeah. Nadia, one thing I wanted to ask you, while we're waiting, if somebody wants to ask a question. So you said you're doing the pod teaching.
Yes.
So I was talking to a client about it here, and one of the interesting things that came up in the conversation is that she was advised by her insurance carrier to up her insurance coverage as a result of doing this pod. Now, I'm not sure what that was, why. I think it's because the kids are going to be in her house when they're doing this pod. It's not going to be virtual.
Did you freeze for everyone or just me?
Hopefully just you and not for the people out there. Sorry.
Okay. I got it though. And she's having the pod at home.
She's going to have the pod at her house. So her insurance carrier told her she needed to up her, she had to get an umbrella or up her umbrella, which I thought was really interesting. Not something I thought of, and I am a lawyer.
That is so interesting. Also, lawyer did not think about that. We're actually looking into renting like very small office space because we have a tutor, a former teacher who's actually going to be helping them through this. So we were thinking if we can find a space for them to go to, that would be even better than alternating
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Now
She
it
froze.
sounds like she's actually going to you're going to like create your own little school.
Basically.
Yeah.
Basically. And I told my husband, I said, if someone opens a school near me, I'm going. I don't care what it is. My kids are going to that school. So.
Are there all 3 kids, including the little one?
No. So all 3 kids were enrolled in school last year. It was a private school, so it was fully paid for the year. And I was still charged for my 2-year-old who had absolutely nothing to do. He had like a 15-minute session every day. But yeah, so the 2-year-old will not be going to school, and just the kindergartner and the 2nd grader will be in school.
Not easy.
And we switched them to public. So
Like,
somebody
going to school.
Aiden just wrote, what would you say to a co-parent, our kid's mom, who is dating a school teacher and insisting the kids spend time with the teacher, indoor, no mask, and yet the mom, co-parent, says that the kids shouldn't go to school because of COVID risks? Okay, the first thing I'm going to say is take a deep breath.
There's the better apart method coming to the forefront.
We should have. We didn't do that intro for the 2 of you today. But yeah, Gabrielle is a best-selling author of The Better Part. Better Part's the name of the book, but it's The Better Part method. And so, Gabrielle, why don't you tackle that?
Well, I'll start. Well, we can go iteratively. I mean, there's no easy one-size-fits-all. I don't know you or your ex or the girlfriend of your ex. But I will say that there are a lot of variables here. Your ex may feel that there's adequate space indoors and in the house where she is with her girlfriend. Maybe the school is more crowded. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. If you wanted to create a combustible situation, you could certainly start one. You could file something. You can really go head to head, or maybe a better way forward, again, not knowing anything about the situation, is to just talk about pragmatics. Like, what will the distancing be like? Is this person part of a very small pod? Are we having pods between the families? What kind of teaching will happen? Maybe going to school does make sense. Maybe there's a give and take here, and you can each get a little bit more of what you want. Strangely, COVID presents an opportunity for people to really stretch their ability to communicate out of necessity. So sometimes, dialing it back is a great way to go forward. And so, model, not to be filled with platitudes, but like be the person, be the change you want to see. Maybe be more agreeable than you would normally be, with the proviso of, okay, well, I'm not really comfortable, but I'll allow this. And maybe you could consider allowing that. And maybe, because I'm hearing you want something, she wants something, maybe you can each give something to each other. But I'm not sure what sister attorneys would say to this.
Yeah, let's hear it, Nadia, Susan.
what was the pattern here? The question was coming from mom or dad?
Dad.
And dad wants the kids to go to school?
Can you see it in the comments here, Nadia?
No, it's cut off. Wait, let me move.
The dad.
Well, Aiden says, what would you say to a co-parent or kid's mom who is dating a school teacher and insisting the kids spend time with the teacher, indoors, no mask, yet doesn't want kids to go to school?
So it's not necessarily that they're disagreeing, that he's saying he wants them to go to school. He's just pointing out that this is a hypocrisy that he sees.
Yeah, that's a hypocritical.
So, yeah, I agree. First, take a deep breath and think about, before you think about litigating the issue and bringing this in front of a judge, because you don't know what a judge is going to say. But based on what we've shared today, most likely a judge will say, you make the decisions about your son or daughter while they're with you, and their mom has the ability to make the same decisions while they're with her, regardless of whether the 2 of you agree on them or not. And I'd say, so instead of trying to litigate this and bring it in front of a judge, try to talk about it with each other, discuss what your concerns are, maybe bring up the fact, hey, if you're concerned about the kids going to school, why not have the same concern?
Oh, she froze.
Seeing if she pops back
Teacher
in.
will be there and teach, but he or she will wear a mask, and maybe, you know, kind of have some middle ground there.
And I would talk about taking turns speaking, you know, like, you know, set ground rules for how you're going to communicate.
Pass the talking stick.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I don't know anything about dynamic. What do you think, Susan?
Well, I think these are inflammatory conversations, right? This is, people get very worked up for very good reason. Aiden, I'm sure you're concerned about your children. And so this is something that people can feel very viscerally about. And so unfortunately, those conversations, I'm going to have to echo what Nadia and Gabrielle said. It takes the, I'm not mansplaining, I promise.
No.
It does take that deep breath.
Only he can mansplain, right?
Aiden is saying he promises he won't mansplain.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You know,
We're
it's a difficult
women-splaining.
conversation. I had a conversation
I'd
with
be
a
a
woman
mansplainer.
with last night, and she was like, well, I told my co-parent, you know, well, why do you want 50-50 custody? You've never spent time with our son. I asked you to do this with him and you never did it, and blah, blah, blah. And she went through this litany of things she felt he had done wrong as a father, and then couldn't understand why he didn't agree with her that 50-50 custody wasn't a great idea. And I was like, well, maybe because you started out with a litany of what you saw wrong in his parenting, it's not really the best way to start a conversation out. I said, what if you said, I know we're both concerned about our son and want to be sure he has the best of everything. I know that's really important to you. I'm concerned because of this or something, not what you did wrong, right? But there's always a better way to phrase these things.
Validate. Like, before you say what you want, just be like, oh, I totally get it. I hope that they have the new HVAC system or whatever, you know, you just step into their shoes and give them some of what they want. Like, make it into an iterative conversation where you are giving. You're going to get a heck of a lot more. Good luck, Aiden.
Such a great point. I think that validation applies to any single disagreement or conversation in life. Anyone.
It's very hard.
Look at the.
No, people want to feel heard. They want to feel felt. And I think starting from a point of gratitude always really helps the situation. Is just hey, you know, we live in a great country, and people may argue that right now, but honestly, if you know history, we live in a dang good time, and our problems are pretty trivial. And so, if you start from a point of gratitude, I think it's easier to have these conversations, not go nuts. And yeah, go ahead.
But people are very heated about COVID. People are very
big time, friggin'
worked up.
They assume the worst too. They want to assume the absolute worst about you. Like, you're out there licking public toilet seats 7 hours a day. You know, like they'll want to believe that you're whatever. The point is that don't assume the worst.
People are, but the thing is, we can't look like. I mean, I don't assume the worst, but I know a lot of people who do, and everybody judges everybody. Let's be honest, right? Everybody has strong opinions. You know, we tend to be, if we have strong opinions, we probably are friends with other people's strong opinions, even if they're disparate opinions. And so if we can live with the assumption that we're at least all putting our best feet forward, that's really all we can do. And to try to remember, if you're judging them, they're judging you also. I don't know. That helps me some, because I know I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, and another thing to remember when it comes to parenting, I always find, is your co-parent loves your kids too. You may not agree with everything that they do, but they're at their core, hopefully they're not doing, you know, they're going to make decisions that are in line with, you know, you're helping your children have healthy, happy lives as well. You guys may not always agree on how to do that, but your co-parent loves your children too. And so having those conversations from the, I have some concerns. I know you want to do what's best. If I would just love to know, if are there any precautions you might be thinking of taking, or do you think that's a good idea? It's okay to have a conversation. It's not good to accuse or tell or allow. I heard that word earlier, and I'm like, you have no right to allow your co-parent to do anything.
Something that's interesting, just on top of what Susan just said, this whole concept of what's safe really can change over time also. Like when your kids are little, like, you'd have the case where the guy feels really comfortable with the kids going hunting and driving on the ATV, the 4 and 6-year-old, and the wife is like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. No way, right? And then fast forward 10 years and the wife who was like, oh my God, no ATV, is like, so he smokes a little reefer. What's the big deal? And the husband's like, oh my God. So like, I'm just going to say, all joking aside, I'm just going to say that, like, don't be too harsh to each other, because you need to be on the same team. And just because you're in the quote unquote right moral high ground right now doesn't mean that over time it's always going to be that way. And you really need to have each other's back. So again, Aiden, I don't know your situation. You might have a totally, you might have an ex with a severe personality disorder, according to you. There could be any set of circumstances which make some of what the three of us are saying more difficult. But in the perfect world, you're just going to try to do everything Susan and Nadia said, and you should be good. Let us know how it works out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anybody else with any questions? We're here and we're happy to answer.
So, by the way, until we have a question, something that I find interesting just to ponder, if it becomes a thing where we're able to choose whether our kids go back part-time or stay home or not, and parents disagree about that, and they have shared parental responsibility, equal decision-making, that's going to be really interesting. How are the judges going to even be deciding that?
Well, and will they, right? Will they even decide it? Because is that an emergency? Is the hundreds of cases filed?
The schools
the problem is, even on a non-emergency basis, one parent can't enroll the child without the other parent's consent, and shouldn't if it's shared parental. So they're kind of stuck in this no man's land of what are we going to do? And if they can't decide on their own.
Right, what will they do?
The person who says no always wins. That's the way it goes. Like the person who says no, they can't go to school, the one with the veto power wins. That's what happens.
Until you get in front of a judge, unless it's moot because of time. Yeah.
So you're gonna have a lot of kids in front of Zoom for many, many hours.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they're saying, they are saying that even, that the effects of COVID and the lack of social interaction, school is much more than just going and learning math and English and
absolutely.
And all that. School is a social, thing. It is there's so much more to it. But there is also, at least from my perspective, a deadly threat out there. And even if it's not the children who get sick, it might be the adults around them who then get the other, so this is one of those things. There's no easy answer. No one is saying that there aren't going to be long lasting repercussions from COVID. We are all going to feel it. They're going to be economic problems. There are going to be learning issues for children. They're going to be it's just going to be across the board. What would behoove parents is to work together to try to minimize that impact on their children, like Nadia's idea of pulling together a pod and creating their own school. Maybe that's, there's almost always a creative way, if you can work with your co-parent, to try to meet the interests of both sides and do what's best for your children. So when you have one parent, like Nadia said, saying, no, they can't go back to school, and the other one saying they have to go back to school, maybe a medium, maybe somewhere in the middle is we'll create our own school, or, something along those lines. So that's working together to come up with something else other than it's all my way or it's all your way.
Yeah. Or if there really are hybrids with people being able to choose to stay home and go to school, maybe during one parent's time sharing, they go to school.
A lot of the schools are making the person pick. They're making the kids, the kids opt in one way or the other, and you can't opt out. If you opt for going to school, you have to go to school unless the government, the governor of those places shut it. So it's pretty complicated. What I was going to say is, I think that when that becomes a problem, the schools are going to have to become a little more flexible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
it's already happening, right? I mean, universities that have already started classes, Notre Dame, Michigan State, UNC, have all been in school for 1 to 2 weeks, and they've all shut down in-person classes because COVID has gone up on all those campuses. So when schools do open, I mean, it just common sense says we're going to start seeing flare-ups of COVID in the schools, whether it be the professionals in the schools, maybe children. They have seen upbursts of children. So it's going to happen. How people deal with it and what you do when it comes about is really, goes back to that co-parenting. It doesn't make one parent right or wrong. It's just one more thing to deal with for that family.
And by the way, even when you're married, these are conversations.
Yeah.
Nadia and Gabrielle and Michael, I bet you. Well, Nadia and Gabrielle, you guys are having these conversations. I'm sure.
Like in my house, like our kids are 3 different ages, and they're high school, junior high school, and elementary school. And like, I can't a pod of high school. Like my kid isn't like friends with kids who are even in his classes necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, what would a pod of 16-year-olds do? Not study. So I'm not doing that. I mean, it's not easy. And 9-year-olds, it's just all difficult. And so that, I think actually that's a good thing for people who are divorced to know that, like, even if you were married and even if you had anything less than an absolutely perfect marriage, which exists, but they are few and far between, this is a hard time for co-parents. It's a hard time for everybody. And like, different people are feeling it in different ways. And you could see, if anyone looks at their Facebook feed, right? Like, we have people, I have people who are like, my Facebook feed could be an episode of The View. It's like so many different points of view and different pain points really just coming at us.
Yeah, I see it among couples and among friends. I mean, I have a couple friends that are like, my husband won't let me out. I think I'm at the store right now, but like she's over having a beer with me or something. I'm like, okay. But
there's a lot of that going on.
Where people are agreeing.
There is a lot of that going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of stress on relationships, right? I
mean,
has
that. Come on over. Yeah. Got a safe haven at my house.
I gotta hop on a plane, Nadia, but I'll be there.
No way. I've been trying to talk you into coming out to see me, and you won't get on that plane.
I know.
Yeah, we might as well share. We were saying offline just how crazy this is that Susan and Nadia here grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same high school and same college.
And over. Go Barons.
Go Barons. Go Blue. Yeah, exactly. We even have Go Blue, everybody.
Go Blue. Did Michigan ever go back or just Michigan State?
Michigan State went back. Michigan is going back. They are back. And they do have right now in-person classes, but we shall see. Michigan State in 1 week has already gone I think for at least the next 2 weeks, they're going to, Michigan State has gone to the entire semester is going to be online. It's Notre Dame that went to the next 2 weeks will only be online, and then they'll reassess.
And Michigan's still going.
Pardon?
And Michigan's still going.
It is still going.
So it's fair to say that once again, we beat state.
Yeah. As usual. Yeah. Sorry, anyone out there who went to state.
My brother went to state. Sorry.
Oh, well, there you go. My brother, my brother wouldn't even apply to Michigan. He's like, I don't want to go to the same school.
Are you the big sister?
I am.
The little sister. Oh, me.
Oh.
Susan,
you're the big. You're the little. I'm the big.
You're the bigs. I'm the little. So you're the responsible ones, and I'm the rebel.
There you go.
Although I have a stepsister who's a year older, so I still think I count as a big, but I have middle tendencies.
What are the middle tendencies?
I try to like make peace between people.
You are a mediator.
Yeah. But that could just be, you know, I changed houses every day growing up between my two parents. I slept every 10 nights. I slept in 4 different houses. Isn't that like weird to think about?
That is weird, but it's funny.
How
But
does
like
that work,
you were
though?
saying, while you were in it, it was no big deal.
It's
Yeah.
no big deal because they each had like, we lived in the city and this sounds like fancy. It's really not, but like, it's not. I mean, you heard the backstories, but like we had a city house and a country house for both of them. And my parents were like, you're so lucky. Kids would kill to have this lifestyle. And I'm like, not really, because I like couldn't do social things a lot because I was going to their country houses. I read a lot.
Well, and that's how you got so smart.
I got so smart.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Gabrielle went to Cornell here, so she's the Ivy Leaguer.
Well, Michigan's kind of, you know.
We're there.
Oh, that's true.
It's the Ivy League of the Midwest.
That's what you say.
I'm just
right?
thinking about
Cornell of the
conferences. I'm
Midwest.
just thinking about sports conferences like they, you know, they're Ivy. But anyway.
But Gabrielle, it's a great point that you bring up because you were between 4 different houses and it was just kind of your norm. I think for every, you know, co-parents out there watching, it's really good to know for any parent, really. The kids adapt.
In fact, I have a post on my Instagram, which is like long down now, but it's 10 days before my parents split up. I mean, 10 days before my 9th birthday, my parents split up. And I saw a diary that I came across, like a Hello Kitty diary. And it's like, dear diary, you know, my birthday is in 6 days. And I'm like, oh my God, this is right after my dad moved out. And it says, and I'm so upset. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, what's this going to say? And it says, because this is my last 1-digit birthday. And then it said, and guess what? Today I had music and art. Like I didn't even talk about, like, it was like not even a thing. So exactly. I think it's really good to remember that the kids are all right. I think there's a book with that name. It's really true.
Yeah, the kids are all right. Yeah.
You make it into a thing. And that's not to say there's not going to be some, you know, look, my entire life is about making divorce more positive. So obviously it had some impact on me. But I feel like all of our childhood have impacts on us, right? Not like no matter how you grew up, there's impact because we're people.
Yeah, well, isn't it therapists say your family of origin is the thing that has the most impact on you, whether it was an intact family or I'm not going to say broken family.
Yeah, Gabrielle, I'll dump down your throat.
I know. No. Well, and there is no such thing as a broken family. But I find it, interesting. People are really having, I think the stress of COVID, just the stress in our lives, right? This constant like things coming at us. And then add on top of it, I live in Chicago. We've had riots. People were breaking windows a block away from my house. There's a constant flow of there's economic issues for everyone. So that's stress coming into our lives. So we as adults, I was talking earlier about the stress children are feeling. Every adult I know is feeling stress right now. And that is affecting parenting as well, I think, because it makes us much less able to be tolerant or cooperative with our co-parent. So whether you had a good relationship or the most strained relationship in the world pre-COVID, if you're having a strained relationship with your co-parent now, cut yourself and them, by the way, some slack here, because the amount of stress we are all living under right now, everyone here on this screen, I'm sure. I mean, Nadia's talking about, we're putting together this school for our kids. Let's just think about how much time and work that is taking to pull together.
And I'm like, oh my God, Nadia, God bless you. My kids are just going to be watching YouTube, like literally.
Yeah.
And can I just say one more thing because I know we're going to wrap up in a minute or 2 or 4. It's so good for your kids if you guys can kind of come together. As you were talking, I was just looking. I don't know if you can see this. Do you see what this is? You can't really. Anyway, It's a 1980 something G.
Oh, it's the heart.
It's a G. It's my initial. It's for Gabrielle. It's my 8th grade graduation present from my mom and dad, who'd been divorced already a
Aww.
million years. And I put it on the other day, and I was showing my kids, and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's from Grandma and Grandpa when I turned 14 or whatever." And they were like, "Weren't they divorced already?" And I was like, "Yeah, but they gave me this for 8th grade graduation." And like, it does mean something. I know that might sound silly, but it's nice for me that they like came together for that. And I think the less conflict, the more you can walk back the conflict, the more okay your kids are going to be. You know, like the way I said okay instead of a curse that I could have said. But I was thinking, I don't know.
No, it's true.
Oh, thanks, Tara. Tara likes my ring.
And it extends to the parents too, right? I mean, the parents want to be able to attend the kids' graduations and weddings and everything else in the future.
Babies.
So, and if people out there watching, if you have these lawyers that are just kind of trying to churn the issues and make them worse and have you fight over everything instead of trying to be like a source of reason and help you reach middle ground, find another lawyer.
Totally.
Yeah.
Get one like the three of us, because honestly, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It does not.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to remember that you're getting advice from people who don't love your kids. They don't. The judge, they may be well-intended. Judge doesn't love your kids. None of these people are going to jump in front of the bus for your kids.
Right.
But you and your co-parent, the very person that you think is horrible, that person loves your kids. So, you're better off working with that person, if at all possible, than involving a bunch of people who don't.
And again, if it's not possible, do not beat yourself up, because it's not always possible. You stay in your you do the best you can do given the facts and circumstances that you were dealt, even if you were part of, selecting that person at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even if one parent is completely absent or has just major dysfunction or things like that, I'm sure all of you have read studies and statistics where as long as, the children have at least one stable person in their lives, they're going to be okay.
Right.
Obviously, it's great to have parents, and that's what everyone strives for. But if you have the situation where that's not possible, that doesn't mean, your kids aren't still going to grow up to be wonderful people. So I think the big thing as parents is to just not beat ourselves up, because we do it all the time. And I say it, but I still do it. So
yeah, you can't help it.
Yeah.
Parenting is hard. And I'm a bonus parent. I'm a step parent. But parenting is hard.
It's hard. Swoosh.
Well, step parent.
Yeah, you don't know, Nadia, but
yeah, we have our own hard.
She walked into triplets. She walked into triplets, and they were like, what, 11? How old were they?
5.
5. Oh, geez, 5. Yeah, she walked into 5.
They were out of diapers and they could feed themselves. That I was thrilled.
I'm sure they were as cute as could be.
Oh, they were. They still are. Just a little bit bigger at 22.
Oh, Tara loves your ring, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you not love my ring? Do you see? Can you see it?
It's fabulous.
I love it, and I love the story that it's your 8th grade graduation. That's just the cutest.
8. That's really cool. I mean, that's that's really cool.
It's a G. It's a G.
That's a G. Oh.
You're a G, Gabrielle. You're a G.
Gabrielle G. It's then I had the nameplate. Staten Island.
It's our girl Gab.
Right.
OG.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Nadia, we want to thank you for coming on. Yeah, we're really thank you very much for coming on.
This was fun.
It was. You should join us again.
Yeah,
definitely do it again sometime.
We should do an Ask the Divorce Attorneys Anything show and let people write in.
Let people know beforehand.
Yeah.
Right in, and we could just that's a great idea.
Well, we'll do this again. We definitely will. And I mean, Susan's got a podcast. Gabrielle's probably done more podcasts.
Come on, Nadia.
I have
a blog. I've got the Better Apart blog. Let's talk.
Right? There you go. We'll talk.
Well, thanks everyone.
Pardon?
It's a podcast. Can we be controversial?
Of course. It's my podcast. Anything we want.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us for Co-Parenting Simplified the Fayr Way, and we'll be back here next week with someone, and we'll let you know later on. We haven't decided that yet, but
we'll figure it out.
Thank you, Nadia. You're the best.
Thank you, Nadia.
Bye.
Bye.